There is karma here. Donald Trump is physically deteriorating before our eyes. And now a majority of Americans in a new YouGov poll say that Donald Trump is a very weak person. Also, his approval has a net negative right now of -17. Before departing to Pittsburgh, Donald Trump spoke with reporters and the TV pooler zoomed in on his hand, as John Hudson explains. When you take a look at Donald Trump's hand right there, we've seen that before, but it is definitely getting worse. Now, we then saw Donald Trump give a very bizarre and deranged press conference in Pittsburgh, where he started talking about bringing in $16 trillion when it's nowhere close to that. And then he says inflation is gone. And then he told a story about how his uncle taught at MIT and the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski was a student of his uncle's. The thing is that Ted Kaczynski never went to MIT, was not a student of Donald Trump's uncle. The entire story is entirely made up, a deranged, demented lie from someone who has conversations with a fictitious cannibal, Hannibal Lecter, as well. We showed you this photo as well from over the weekend when Donald Trump attended the FIFA Club World Cup at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. You take a look right there at his ankles, incredibly swollen right there. And for all of the medical professionals out there, this is all very alarming health-related signs. And then, of course, you take a look at his face right there, again, completely orange and deteriorating. A very overall, looks very, very unhealthy, individual right there. And as I said, there's a karma here because just thinking about the amount of people the Trump regime has killed, willfully, maliciously, recklessly, and negligently, but I think it was more willfully. We learned this story yesterday as well. Hat tip to The Atlantic for reporting on it first. The Trump regime has given the order to incinerate food instead of sending it to people abroad who need it. Nearly 500 metric tons of emergency food, enough to feed about 1.5 million children for a week, are set to expire. Rather than bring that food to feed the children who may die without it, the Trump regime is incinerating it. The story goes on to say how 5 months into its unprecedented dismantling of foreign aid programs, the Trump regime has given the order to incinerate food instead of sending it to the people who need it. Nearly 500 metric tons of emergency food, enough to feed about 1.5 million children for a week, are set to expire today, according to current and former government employees with direct knowledge of the rations. Within weeks, two of those sources told me the food meant for children in Afghanistan and Pakistan will be ash. I mean, just horrible stuff right there. Now, as Donald Trump also gives Vladimir Putin a 50-day heads up for Putin to do whatever he wants to do in Kyiv, which means sending Shahed drones and ballistic missiles to kill innocent Ukrainians. We're seeing right now, not even 24 hours, as Jay in Kyiv writes, after Trump refuses to apply sanctions, but does give Putin 50 more days, Russia again begin bombing Kyiv. Even while General Kellogg, Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine, is in town. And Kellogg and Trump said that they would bring peace to Ukraine in 24 hours. Putin's forces unleashing massive assaults on Kharkiv and Kyiv, rocking the city with dozens of explosions. Russian ballistic missiles also slammed into other cities. Victims reported across the country right there. And remember why I told you that Donald Trump picked 50 days versus 2 weeks? Because back on July 3rd, Putin told Donald Trump in the phone call, it was reported then, that it would take him about 60 days to have a successful summer offensive against Ukraine. So if you go to July 3rd and then you add the dates of Donald Trump saying 50 days, he's giving Putin actually 61 days from July 3rd. He's actually giving Putin everything he wants. And when Donald Trump says, I'll consider imposing secondary, Trump calls it tariffs, he meant sanctions. I'll consider imposing secondary sanctions on Russia. Well, you already withdrew the sanctions on the Russian banks who are now doing business across the world, and Russia's economy was suffering and you bailed them out. So your secondary sanctions will do what? You just lifted the sanctions against the banks. Now, we're seeing how the rest of the world's responding. Prime Minister Mark Carney in Canada posting the following: spoke with President von der Leyen, President of the European Union Commission, this morning to discuss the new European Union-Canada strategic partnership of the future and next steps to deepen cooperation on industrial policy, critical raw minerals, digital trade, and clean technologies. In the face of a shifting global landscape, Canada and the EU will become even stronger and more competitive through an even closer relationship. And then Prime Minister Carney spoke with the President of Mexico, the very popular President Claudia Sheinbaum there. Today, Prime Minister Carney spoke with the President of Mexico,